On today's show, Milwaukee Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo deciding not to sign his available contract extension, citing concerns over making sure everybody in the organization is on the same page about pursuing a championship. How should these comments be interpreted? And is Giannis's future in Milwaukee in jeopardy, possibly? We're going to unpack that and so much more right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Look, I absolutely love DoorDash. I use it all the time. Sometimes you don't want to leave your house, your apartment, whatever. Maybe you don't want to put pants on, so you just open the app, find your favorite restaurant, order your food, comes right to your doorstep, right? It's incredible. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your favorite restaurants. Now you can get your groceries delivered too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll get exactly what you ordered without the fuss, right? You don't have to take a trip to the grocery store, go down all the aisles. It can be frustrating sometimes, right? You can get somebody else to do it for you, get it delivered with DoorDash. You'll get the exact right stuff, substitution options, all of that. And the best part is you can get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to $20 when you use code LOCKEDONNBA at checkout. Limited time offer. Terms do apply. That's 50% off up to $20 with no minimum subtotal and zero delivery fees on your very first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONNBA. Don't forget that's code LOCKEDONNBA for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Bucks, Kane Pitman, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Bucks. And Kane, the talk of the town, Giannis Antetokounmpo's future with the Milwaukee Bucks. He was recently available or, eligible to sign his extension, but his comments from about a month ago kind of rearing their ugly head again in the last few days with the extension eligibility kicking in, and Giannis apparently sticking to his guns, no intention to sign the contract extension. The comments, in case you missed them elsewhere in an interview with the New York Times, Giannis basically said, next summer, it would make more sense for both parties. Even then, I don't know. I would not be the best version of myself if I don't know that everybody's on the same page regarding championship pursuits, that kind of thing. Everybody going for a championship. Everybody's going to sacrifice time away from their family like I do. And if I don't feel that, I'm not signing. So, Kane, how should Giannis's comments about the extension and not wanting to sign it at this point be interpreted?
It's common sense to me. This is probably how he should be feeling, and to be honest, probably how the Bucks understand the situation to be. There was no reason for him to sign an extension with 2 years left on his deal this offseason. It didn't make a lot of sense. The Bucks have just changed head coach as well, bringing in Adrian Griffin. So this is a major change for the franchise. They were able to sign Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez, but they are heading, whether it's next offseason or 2 seasons from now, they are heading from a very interesting situation where this core that won a title is going to be getting older, nearing their mid-30s, and the Bucks are going to have to make decisions as a franchise. So for me, for Giannis, a guy that has dominated an NBA Finals and won an NBA title for the franchise, he should sit back and wait. Now, it's not often the case that these comments are as blunt as they are, but Giannis has always been a guy that I don't think is held back with things that he said in the past. And I think it would be pretty crazy if you're sitting back and thinking that he should feel any different to the way that he does right now.
Yeah, I feel like the timing of it just feels almost forced in a way, because again, we're 2 years out from this, and just the like you said, the bluntness of it all, it just seems a little peculiar, I guess, to just be so upfront about it. Very much almost like a glaring kind of battle cry, whatever, for the organization. Like, hey, we got to be on our P's and Q's or I'm not going to be sticking around. How have his teammates and maybe members of the organization kind of responded to these comments to this point?
Yeah, there hasn't been much said from the organization, but the understanding is that they are very, very aware that they need to continue putting a contending team on the court, or Giannis will move on. Chris Middleton spoke last week in a separate interview, and he kind of said that it wasn't a big shock to him, and they understand where Giannis is at in his career. So this is a little bit different to a few years ago when Giannis was in a similar position. He didn't sign an extension initially, and then he was able to sign that Supermax contract. At that point in time, he hadn't won a title. And when he was asked about it in the seasons prior to signing that extension, he said, I'm not talking about it. I don't want to talk about it. This is not a conversation I'm going to have. I just think he's in a different point in his career now. He's going to be nearing 30 years old or turning 30 next December. So he is been in the league for over 10 years now. He has won a title. He has won 2 MVPs. So he probably just feels more comfortable in himself now saying, well, I've brought a title to this franchise in this city. Now I can sit back and say, hey, you want me to bring another one? You want me to stick around with the franchise? Then make sure we continue to evolve with this team, because the Bucks are in a difficult position with the new CBA, repeater tax, high salary. They've been over the cap for a long time. So it's not going to be cheap to continue building a contender. I think this is just Giannis saying, I'm nearing the back end of my career as well. I want to keep winning.
Do you think these comments have maybe cost him a little cachet, either with the organization or with maybe the fans of the organization, in the sense of, and again, because you see these comments, right, and maybe you get into the season, obviously we're still a ways away from this situation turning into the worst possible outcome, right, the worst timeline for the Bucks, where maybe this season ends catastrophically, right, they don't meet expectations, whatever. And they're forced to explore those options of like what trading Giannis would look like further down the line rather than losing him for nothing. Like, how does this, has Giannis earned enough cachet with the organization, with the fans, bringing a title to Milwaukee, being a 2-time MVP, all of that, to where these comments, everybody should be able to look past them and just understand, no, this is fair for Giannis to feel this way?
Of course. They had won one title, and it was back at the start of the 70s. And then Giannis has come and he's put this team at a contending status for 5 straight seasons after they hadn't even exited or gone beyond the first round in over 2 decades. He could leave at the end of this contract and he will still be loved. He will be a legend. They should put a statue up out front of the arena. So no, I don't think there's too many people that are sitting back now and starting to turn on Giannis. I don't think that is something that will happen in Milwaukee. That's for sure.
Well, then what does the bar for success look like for Giannis and the Bucks this season after their disappointing exit this last go around?
Well, it's hard to say, because if you're talking about what the organization can do for this team to keep them contending, they really have done it over the last few years. They have been able to sign the guys they needed to sign. They did go all in and pick up Drew Holiday via trade, and that was a catalyst for this team to win a title. So I think the organization to this point has done everything they needed to do. They are paying in the luxury tax. This is Milwaukee. This isn't Los Angeles. So that is a big tick for the front office. But they're just going to have to continue to do that. And because it is going to be expensive to continue to build this roster and keep them at this level, I think if they do get to a point where they say, okay, this is getting too expensive, there was an ownership change last year, let's start trading these guys. We don't want to spend that money. That's not going to be an environment Giannis wants to stick around. But they have got a trade asset with the 2029 first-round pick this year, which some teams might find very valuable if they think that Giannis is leaving down the line. So they've got a few different things they can do in terms of potentially swinging a trade. And I think all Giannis wants to see is the fact that this team is going to continue to spend and continue to look at ways to improve the roster. I think more than anything, that is the biggest thing here. But I think this is a team that should be near the top of the Eastern Conference. And if they're not reaching the NBA Finals, if everyone is healthy, that has to be looked at as a disappointment.
At one point, though, if we start navigating this year, at what point do you start to explore the idea of, okay, a future without Giannis? Or is there a world where maybe you start to look at some of the other core pieces of this team, the Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez? Is there a world where you maybe see the Bucks try to see if they can reinvent what the team looks like by moving on from those guys and putting a new supporting cast around Giannis, rather than, the alternative of having him walk away for nothing or having to trade him, their centerpiece?
Well, I don't think it's going to be this regular season, because again, they've just brought in a new head coach. Now, there are ideas that can they put something together for Damian Lillard or something like that. That's a little bit different. But I think for this season, with the first-year head coach, Adrian Griffin, I think that they will be able to roll through this season. And assuming that everyone is healthy, or hoping that everyone is healthy, they should be a team that can make a deep playoff run. But next offseason, Drew Holiday could potentially be a free agent, a player option in the following year. So they're going to have a decision there. Drew Holiday is going to have to make a decision where he wants to be as well, and what can the Bucks do for his long-term future. Then the year after that, Brook Lopez is out of contract. So whether it's next offseason or the offseason after, there's going to be change in Milwaukee. There's no question about that. And those are the big decisions that could shape the future. But if I'm in the front office for Milwaukee, I'm not considering trading Giannis. Why would you do that? You're not going to be able to trade Giannis and put yourself in a position that this franchise has never been over the last 5 years. So to me, you ride it out to the finish line if that's the case and Giannis eventually does play somewhere else. But I think your best chance to win a title is with him on the roster.
What will the future hold for Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks? You'll have us covered for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Bucks. Kane, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Always a pleasure.